Welcome everyone to this webinar for Kalgoorlie Gold Mining, ASX code KAL. Shortly, I'll introduce MD and CEO Matthew Painter, who will provide an update on the company's recent farming over tenure at Kirgella and Pinjin South and acquisition of tenements at Rebecca West, all near Kalgoorlie in Western Australia. He will also discuss why this tenement package has significant potential for a new gold discovery, next steps in systematically exploring the new tenements, and how Kalgold is strengthening its balance sheet to accelerate exploration across its projects. Following the presentation, attendees will have the opportunity to ask questions of Matt during a moderated Q&A session. So, as the presentation is occurring, think about the questions you would like to ask and submit them using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and I will put them to Matt during the Q&A session. Okay. Let's get started. I would now like to introduce Kalgold MD and CEO, Matthew Painter, who will go through the formal presentation. Matt, over to you.
Thanks very much, David. And it's great to be presenting the Pinjin and Rebecca West projects to shareholders and potential investors. We've been working on this for quite some time. We're rather excited by it, and you can see we've already got underway out there. The shot you can see on screen there is actually the drill rig in operation from a drone looking towards Lake Rebecca in the south as we undertook our confirmatory holes a little while ago. So look, if I can just run you through the presentation, and look, I'll look forward to questions as they come through after the preso. So go to the next slide, please. That's a quick disclaimer and what have you. Just one thing on that too is that the exploration results, you can see all of these in the announcement that went out last week on the 23rd, I think it was. All the results, all the work behind them have been put together in that document, and any references you need you'll find therein. So look, Kalgold, we've been going for a little while now, for a year and a half. We've got an incredible team in Kalgold. The experience that we've got is truly global. We've all worked all around the world, and we bring that experience from globally back to the Eastern Goldfields. We've all started off in the goldfields, we've gone, spread out overseas, and then come back again. What we've done too is proven that we can deliver gold at low cost. So at La Mascotte, which is the deposit that we've discovered and defined 35 kilometres east of Kalgoorlie, we have defined 138,000 ounces sticking out of the ground. It's actually outcropping just east of Kalgoorlie, and we managed to do that for the all-in cost of $4.60 per ounce. We used some historical data there, but we did it very diligently and brought it up to JORC standards. And this is a process that we are using continuously in the company, and we intend to deliver more low-cost resources. And we're going to start by trying to do that out at Pinjin in our acquisition that we've just picked up. We're in the Laverton Tectonic zone, 30 million ounces of gold sitting in that thing, mostly within Sunrise Dam, Granny Smith, Wallaby, etc. But there's a number of other significant deposits at Anglo-Saxon, Rebecca, and others. At Pinjin, we're looking at something pretty exciting. There's quite a number of prospects. The whole area is quite anomalous for gold. There's a number of very good grade intercepts, things like Kirgella Gift. Historic results, including 33 meters at 3.1 grams per ton. Now that's very significant. It's significant for its grade, but it's also significant for its thickness. One thing the Laverton Tectonic zone does well is big, thick shear zones, and this looks like we might have one here, and we're confirming that right now with our drilling. Point of difference with Kalgold too is that we're a small company, but we make sure we've got an office in Kalgoorlie, we've got geologists in Kalgoorlie, so our guys are out in the bush constantly. And it's great to see they're incredibly enthusiastic as well, and they're constantly out there, constantly coming up with ideas and getting the job done in a really professional way. And the rest of the portfolio offers plenty of upside as well. We won't go into that here in any detail, but I'm always happy to take people through that. We go to the next slide, please. So the executive team's fantastic. It's probably one of the best boards I've ever worked on. Pauline Gately, investment strategist and what have you, likes to get hands-on, likes to see what's going on, and gets rather excited about the projects and what have you. And it's really great to be working with her in detail on what we're working on. Myself, I'm an economic geologist, PhD in that, professional structural geologist, global experience in a lot of the time in gold, but elsewhere as well, in other commodities as well. South America, Africa, Central Asia, East Asia, global experience that we're bringing back into in-house. Carmel, she's a lawyer based in Kalgoorlie with a mining focus, incredibly valuable team member. And Andrew Pankerthman, non-executive director, geologist, again, with global experience. And he's the managing director of Ardea Resources, which is the company, by the way, that Kalgold spun out of. And our exploration manager, Scott Herman, one of the true pros of the industry. Look, he's just got a lot of experience exploring, largely for gold, but for other metals as well. And just a great fellow to work with, just gets the job done. No fuss, makes things happen. Brilliant fellow. Can I go to the next slide, please? So where we are is east of Kalgoorlie Boulder. This is where we're discovering low-cost resources. You can see in the bottom centre of the slide, La Mascotte out at Violong-Taurus. It's only 35 km from Kalgoorlie. We're talking about a sealed road out there. It takes you half an hour to get out there. You can take a hot lunch and it's still warm by the time you get out there. So very, very close to town. In the Laverton Tectonic zone, we're further out to the east, but again, the roads are very, very good. We're on the main road that goes through to Anglo Gold and others, Tropicana mine, gold mine. That mine requires good access, so consequently the roads are excellent all the way out there. The whole Laverton Tectonic zone itself is one of the most prospective parts of the prospective areas in Australia, and we believe the southern part of it is probably the most prospective part of that tectonic zone, and I'll take you through that shortly. Initially, we're focusing on Kirgella Gift, but yeah, we're going to be moving outwards throughout the entire tenement package, where we've got new ground that we've acquired, plus applications that we've been working on, plus some granted tenure as well. It really is an active M&A region at the moment as Ramelius shores up feedstock for its Rebecca mill. We're just north of the proposed Rebecca mill, about 7.5 k's to the south of us. 25 k's is in a straight line between Kirgella Gift and the Rebecca site. And then further south, we've got Breaker Resources, which is where Ramelius has just picked that up, in an effort apparently to feed into a future Rebecca mill. So it's an interesting area. It's a highly prospective area. It's something we're going to be putting our best foot forward on. Next slide, please. So the Pinjin South and Kirgella farm-in, you can see in pink there, the outlines. So it's quite a significant bit of tenure. Not enormous, but it doesn't need to be enormous. It's in the right spot. So 4 exploration licenses, 3 prospecting licenses. We've got a 2-year farm-in for a $1.4 million spend commitment. That makes the vendors happy that we're going to commit to it. It'll also make shareholders happy that we're going to do what we say we're going to do. We're not going to throw a couple of holes into this thing and walk away. It would never allow us to do that anyway. But what we are doing is committing to a spend that will get us towards a resource in an area where there aren't, where resources haven't been calculated, but immediately south of or in between areas where there have been significant resources. We've also acquired the Rebecca West tenure. It's only 3 blocks, but it's a really interesting little area and somewhere that hasn't had a lot of exploration. It's a stone's throw effectively from the Rebecca tenure or the Ramelius tenure, immediately to the west there of the Rebecca project. We've also got a bunch of our own tenure granted and applications. One big granted one, 31119. It's the home of our Jungle Dam project, and we've done a little bit of work out there, which you may have seen in some of our previous announcements. Incredibly prospective area, largely takes in the Celia tectonic zone, which runs parallel to the Laverton. Just an area between outcropping gold mineralisation at Edgedina. It dives under cover. There's our tenure. Comes up out of cover. There's the Pinjin goldfield. So it's an interesting area. We've got some rather good neighbours in the region. So Ozorum, which is highlighted on the map. We've got Ramelius to the south, and other quality operators like E79, FMG, Hawthorn, Northern Star. It's an incredible area. I think it's being recognised for what it is as one of the more underexplored portions of one of the great gold zones of the Eastern Goldfields. And it means that we're in very good company and we're proud to be there. I'll go to the next slide, please. So here we are at the southern end of the Laverton tectonic zone. I'll draw your attention to the map on the left. It shows where the Kalgold tenure is. It shows our farm-in tenure and the acquired tenure at Rebecca West, and then southward through Rebecca and beyond to the south. To the north, that's where all the action's been historically. So Granny Smith, Wallaby, Sunrise Dam accounting for the lion's share. Sunrise and Wallaby each in excess of 10 million ounce endowment, and that's production and resources. Granny Smith 5.8. And then as we head further south, what we see is a number of other deposits as well. So Red October, Linden, Deep South, Patricia, and Anglo-Saxon. What we think is that the amount of work and the amount of knowledge around the Laverton tectonic zone decreases southwards, just as the known deposits decreases southwards. We don't believe that it's any less prospective down to the south. What we believe is that the amount of work that's been done there has not been commensurate with the amount that it justifies. We think that we're in elephant country, and that's why we've had such a focus on this ground. If we can find, something that's a fraction of the size of a Sunrise Dam or a Wallaby, we'd be extremely happy. And we think we've got indications of that sort of thing happening in the area. There's certainly a lot of smoke, and that's what we're going to be chasing. A lot of the southern part of the Laverton tectonic zone is under transported cover, and we're only 500 metres south of the Anglo-Saxon pit, which marks the southern terminus of the historic Pinjin goldfield. But we do know that the gold anomalism continues further southward. We know that from some historic data. We know that from quality work that our neighbours are doing. We are very eager to get in there because no work has really been done on our tenure since about 2011. Next slide, please. So Kirgella Gift, it's our main target. It's the location of our first confirmatory drilling. It's high-grade mineralisation. It's open at very shallow levels. And the whole area, it's encased by a broad zone of shear, which I mentioned before is actually quite important, and lower grades. So we've got this halo of mineralisation with higher grades in the middle. It comes up to within 10 metres of surface, and that southerly plunge of gold mineralisation is open from within 40 metres of surface, and it just hasn't been followed up. Providence to the south was the last discovery, and it's only from a handful of holes, and that was done about 2012. There's a possible connection to Kirgella Gift, and that's what we're going to be checking out from the work that we're doing. Other prospects that we've got there are extremely interesting. There's been some work done on those, and what we want to do is work out, we've got our window into the area and into the geology and the mineralisation of the area at Kirgella Gift. We're going to use what we learned there and at Providence and take that through to T12, T15, and some of the other targets in the area. Next slide, please. And this is why we like it. It really is quite an incredible area. So the historic data, as I said, it hasn't been touched for the best part for over a decade, really, for various reasons. But it hasn't been publicly available for exploration for the best part of that decade. And now we've got it, so we're very excited by it. But you can see there's some incredible numbers through there. And what we're seeing too is when we plot these things up, is that there's just some high-grade mineralisation plunging southward into an open area, and it just hasn't been drilled out. These mineralised structures trend north-south, and they just haven't been followed. So it gives us a lot of confidence that there's something going on here that's wide open that we can build on very, very quickly. We've just run some confirmatory drilling to see what we've got, and we're hoping those results are still pending, but we'll be releasing those as soon as we can. Next slide, please. Of the historic drilling that's been done, we've just put in some numbers on the amount that's been done. Most of it has been around Kirgella Gift, particularly for RC, a little bit at Providence, some on the T12 and T15 prospects to the north and south. But really, there's about $3.4 million worth of drilling and assays performed historically. We can make something of that. It gives us an indication that we've got a project that is very good value for shareholders. It gives us something to build on. Part of what we're doing is calibrating this historic data, and we will be that will allow us to, or give us the confidence that we need for bringing this into any future JORC resources should they eventuate. It's what we did at Lamas Scott, nearer to Kalgoorlie. It's what we're going to do here, is make the most of the data that we have. Next slide, please. So we've done the initial confirmatory drilling, and here it was from the other week. 3 closely spaced confirmatory drill holes for only 355 meters. It's just to get a taste of what we're dealing with. We've already seen that we've got broad zones of shearing and alteration at Kirgella Gift. And we've got quartz carbonate pyrite veining, visible gold from 50 meters depth in one of the holes. And the assays are still pending. You may have seen too that there is a video available online, and that is you can view that at your leisure. But we're actually on site as we're drilling. Very, very exciting to see what we had out there. Next slide, please. So at Kirgella and Providence, we're quite certain that we're dealing with one system. They're not very far apart, 300 to 400 meter gap, say, depending on where it's being drilled, but really only limited mineralization. It gives us potential for huge upside. What we can see is that the mineralization at both of the prospects looks to be identical. At Kirgella Gift, we've got a southerly plunge on the mineralization. We actually, from our own internal investigations, determined that that might be the case. We're very encouraged to eventually get access to a 2012 CSIRO report, which confirmed exactly the same thing. It gave us great confidence that we are on the right track at Kirgella Gift, and it's something that we need to follow up. As you can see, 2012, the CSIRO study, nothing done really on the ground since then. So it's findings that have never been followed up on. At Providence, we've got, as you can see, one line of 2 RC holes down there. There's been other shallower drilling that shows anomalism, but effective drilling, there's 2 holes. We don't know what the orientation of this thing is. There's several possibilities there, and I'll show you a long section very shortly that picks up on one of those possibilities, but just keep in mind that is only a possibility at this point. But we could have a northerly plunge to gold mineralization there. Where do they meet? It could be a repeat effectively of what we're seeing at Kirgella Gift plunging to the south. There's a lot of questions to be answered there, but it gives us a big opportunity to explore what is an underexplored prospect, even on this scale at only 700 meters. It just hasn't been drilled out properly. Have the next slide, please. So this will take you through a little bit of an animation just on these. We've got a southward plunge at Kirgella Gift. This is a long section looking eastward through Kirgella Gift. The circles with the cross through them, they're the rough pierce points of the confirmatory drilling that we've just done. And they're the ones that we'll bring you the results for soon. What this shows is that we've got mineralization. These are intercepts throughout Kirgella Gift area. It's difficult to show in some respects because we're dealing with a thick zone of mineralization. But what this shows, and if you just go to the next part of the animation, please, is that we've got a broad zone plunging southward to the right in this case. There's other parts there where we have hints that there might be something else going on. So I've dotted those arrows in. You can see at Kirgella Gift, there could be some shallower mineralization, for example. There could be mineralization into the page, away from us, and out of the page in front of us as well. And what all these drill holes are doing are all going in 3D. So it's difficult to represent, but what it shows quite clearly is that there's this broad zone that is plunging southward that from even 40 meters depth, that has never been followed up. And that gives us a big opportunity to realize what might be going on in this area. Can I have the next part of the animation, please? What we're going to do is drill quite systematically, and this is conceptual at this stage, but all these points here represent where we'd like to go through this shear zone and identify more gold mineralization. So we're going to be testing some of these areas. Like I say, this is conceptual. At Kirgella Gift, we need to fill in that area to see that the gold mineralization does continue further southward. And at Providence, we need to surround the historic data because we just don't know which way that mineralisation is plunging or dipping at this point in time. And next part of the animation, please. And what we're trying to do there is start to explore a conceptual target. Like I said a moment ago, this is one conceptual target. There's several other possibilities. We consider this the most likely at the current state of knowledge. That state of knowledge could change tomorrow with more drilling, but what this tells us is that we've got models that we can work on here, and we will work towards those to work them out. If this is a correct model, it gives us plenty of opportunity for mineralisation connecting up between Kirgella Gift and Providence. It's quite an exciting area, and look, I really hope that we can show that this model is correct, because it means that we've got something quite serious going on here. 300 to 500 metre gap, and we'll be filling that in as soon as we can. Next slide, please. Again, conceptual cross sections, but this is the type of thing we're going to be looking at doing. So this is a cross section looking northward in each of the prospects. At Kirgella Gift. From some of the historic drilling, we're just looking at tightening this right up so that we get a better idea of what we're dealing with. Initially, we could be looking at 50-metre sections with 20-metre hole spacing along them, so that we can get a very good handle and build towards a JORC resource as soon as possible. The programs will be staged so we can follow these things down and get the best bang for buck that we possibly can. But equally, we're going to be learning as we go. And so one of the things that we're talking about already, you can see on the eastern side or the right-hand side of both of these sections, the drill holes terminate quite abruptly. We already realise that that's not going to be the best way to go. We might have to extend slightly further eastward. We have suggestions that there might be more mineralisation out that way, and we need to test that. And also further to the west on the left-hand side of these sections as well. There's more potential out there, both on these sections and further to the north and south. So we'll be learning as we go, as you do with these sorts of deposits, and modifying accordingly. But this gives you an idea of the way that we are tackling this prospect. And we'll get it down to 50 by 20 metres in places. Do we need to take it tighter after that? Let's see. We end up with 25-metre line spacing, for example, if that's appropriate. We'll work on this, we'll build it up, and we'll see where we end up. Next slide, please. Just some of the prospects up at Pinjin South as well. We've certainly not got a one-trick pony here. This is an incredibly prospective area, and what we're dealing with in the northern part as well is part of the Pinjin goldfield where it's just ducking undercover. So what you can see at the very top of that map on the left there is just the tail end, the southern tail of the Pinjin goldfield. It extends for another 5 to 10 kilometres further north of here. You can also make out in the imagery with some of the writing over it, but yeah, that's the Anglo-Saxon gold mine, the open pit there. We're all of 500 metres away from the edge of the pit. We've got Pinjin Homestead in between the pit and our tenure. But we've also got a number of prospects in the very adjacent tenure that need to be followed up. And certainly Wessex prospect has some incredible intercepts off tenure, but those drill holes come right up to the tenement margin to the point where the inclined holes were brought up to vertical at the tenement boundary because they didn't want, whoever drilled them back in the past didn't want to breach that tenement boundary. So we're rather excited to see where this goes as we go over the tenement boundary. It's never been drilled there by anything effective like RC. I think there was a little bit of oil drilling over the top or something in the past, but nothing to test what might be going on at depth. So we're really very much looking forward to testing what goes on the eastern side of the Wessex prospect there. And that point there, just so you know, is from Mindex, the West Australian Mines Department point, gazetted point. It sits almost exactly on the boundary. We're right in the middle of the prospect, but the eastern half of it just hasn't been explored. At Harbour Light, it's not the Harbour Lights from the Murchison, it's a Harbour Lights prospect. That's the historic name of this thing. But yeah, as you can see, also some incredible intercepts there. It's on a small magnetic ridge, which isn't shown in this diagram, that extends further southward onto our tenure. And that has just not been drilled out onto our tenure to the south. So again, something rather exciting for us. We're finessing the targets in that part of the world right at the moment. But these are two of the other targets that will be explored as we start to assess not just Kirgella Gift, not just Providence, but this entire part of the Laverton tectonic zone for what we can see has the potential to host large gold deposits. Next slide, please. Rebecca West, just to the south there, just very briefly, it's a couple of tenements. It's immediately west of Ramilius's Rebecca project, only 9 k's of the proposed plant. The gold targets there, it's being defined, the structural targets that are emerging, and these are going to have to be ranked with all the other things that we're seeing throughout the rest of the Pinjin project. And the historic exploration there's been very limited. There's only just one line of air core drilling out there. In what is, I think it's transported cover over the top of it towards some dune country through there. So look, completely open. What's the potential in there? We don't know at the moment. We can see there's several concepts coming through already that we will be very keen to assess. And look, when you're in the Laverton tectonic zone like we are, you don't take anything for granted. So we're very eager to get out there and have a look on the ground. Next slide, please. So the balance sheet is quite a bit strengthened from where we were. So we've got firm commitments received for $1.4 million via a placement, and then up to $0.5 million for the share purchase plan, which will be launched shortly. We've had strong support for the placement and for the share purchase plan. The funds are going to be applied to the systematic drilling assessment of the Pinjin project, which I've tried to detail to you or give you a preview of just now. That shallow gold mineralisation at Kirgella Gift is clearly going to be an early target. And then checking that full continuity and that gap between Kirgella Gift and Providence is huge. And then T12, T15, Wessex Harbour Lights, as well as other targets that we've actually generated already, both on our granted tenure and on some of the applications that we have there as well. We're already defining targets out there. We're going to be checking all of those, ranking them and exploring them appropriately. There's strong lithium potential in the area as well. And look, it's something that isn't Kalgold's main focus, but we'd be remiss if we didn't do the best by our shareholders and check all possibilities. So we know from regional studies that have been done and from historic geological survey mapping that pegmatites are in the area. We know that some of our neighbours are exploring some of those already. This is a potentially important lithium area that just has not been explored in the past, and we'll be keeping an eye on that as we go as well, as we explore the area in what is a relatively poorly exposed area, but one that is known to host pegmatites and what have you. Next slide, please. Like many in the junior space for gold, we've taken a bit of a whack. But we are in a place now with this project acquisition and with the commensurate raising that we will be in a place to move forward and move forward rapidly in terms of our programs and in terms of hopefully share market response once, when hopefully there's a change in market sentiment at the junior end of the gold sector. It's a very difficult time for a lot of people. There's a lot of really good quality operators out there at the moment who, like us, have suffered quite a hit to the share price, which by no means reflects the quality of work that's been done in those companies. I'm aware of quite a few in detail. We've all been hit the same way. What we need to do is be ready to go when the market sentiment turns, and certainly some of the pundits are suggesting that might happen sooner rather than later, fingers crossed. But look, certainly we will be in a very good place with the acquisition of the Pinjin project and the expansion of the Pinjin project to really be at the forefront of any recovery once it comes. Next slide, please. So what have we got? We've got shallow high-grade gold mineralisation at Pinjin Kirgella, one of the most prospective gold mineralised structures in the eastern goldfields of WA, in the Yilgarn Craton of Western Australia, and so therefore one of the most prospective parts or prospective areas for gold in the world. The acquisition, it delivers on Kalgold's aim. It's something we've been aiming for a long time, something we've been working towards for a long time, to assess appropriate projects systematically and continuously in the Goldfields region. And it also allows us to build on what we have on our knowledge, on our targeting expertise, to deliver something new for shareholders. And that expertise we are using to define maximum ounces at minimum cost. Next slide, please. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt. Great presentation. Pile of questions, so we'll just jump straight in. Now, you made the comment that the farming and acquisition is transformational for the company. What gives you the confidence of the ground, and why make such a bold statement?
Look, David, it's one of those areas that I've worked in the past. I've worked at Sunrise Dam for quite some time, and explored through the region in the past as well. The Laverton Tectonic zone is just one of those parts of the world that is host to giant deposits. It really is elephant country, and it's something that we have been very keen to expand into for quite some time. We had one of the licenses available at listing, and look, the whole area is something that we've been monitoring very, very closely. Even before any of this project became even remotely available, it was a what if sort of area for us. We can see that, of the large discoveries in the Eastern Goldfields in the last decade, they've been in this southern part of the Laverton Tectonic Zone and the adjacent Celia Tectonic Zone. So Rebecca by Apollo Consolidated, who've been taken out by Ramelius, and Bombora, Lake Rowe by Breaker Resources in the south there. Part of the reason that they're able to find giant deposits in this part of the world is because this area has been more difficult to explore in the past. It's been neglected, if you like. Like I mentioned, there's a sweep from the north down to the south. The giant deposits known in the north. The knowledge, the geological knowledge, the understanding of the region is more thorough in the north, and that's where we find the big deposits. As we increase that knowledge further south, that's where we have the opportunity to find giants, and it might only be under a thin mantle of cover. So that's what we're looking for. That gives us huge confidence that we've got the right address, we've got the experience to do it. We're just got to go find it now.
Now, a question here, you touched on before lithium at Pianto. Apologies if I pronounce that incorrectly. Do you think that has the potential to be material?
Oh, look, potentially, yeah. Look, it's very early out there, and we went in with a concept. There's some gold anomalism out there as well. It's unusual, that area, in as much as it's largely granite, but there's some structures running through the area that are unlike some other, most of the rest of the granites in the goldfields. And so it got us asking the question, what's going on here? And look, we've only done very first pass exploration out there, and we found lithium anomalism. We've done some rock chipping since then to follow up on that. What we can see, we've actually found a little bit of spodumene out there. So there are lithium minerals, we know that. What we found is that from the work that we've done, there's anomalism that's entirely undercover. Adjacent to that anomalism, there is some outcrop. We've taken some samples from those areas. We've actually, that's where we did find some spodumene in those adjacent areas. Like I say, very, very early. This rock chipping that we're doing at the moment will give us an idea as to what might be going on in the adjacent target areas, and it hopefully will give us the impetus to move towards potentially an air core type program, what have you, out there. But it's also honing our skills a little bit too for what we're looking for out at Pinjin, because we think there's potential out that way, quite significant potential for lithium in the Pinjin part of the world as well.
There's a couple of questions here, so I'll group them in terms of news flow and what's expected. I think there's a statement here which is, there's been limited news flow over the last sort of 18 months, which has at times hampered, if you like, the share price growth or otherwise. What does news flow look like now? You capitalise, exciting new projects. What do you think? How busy do you think you'll be, and what expectations should shareholders have on the company in terms of news flow?
Yeah, we expect there's going to be quite a lot of news flow, David. At the moment, we're obviously waiting for the results of our confirmatory drill program, and that's coming through as soon as, we expect that to be through very soon. We also expect to be drilling soon, so we're aiming for July, August. We'll confirm that soon, but that's hopefully when we can get out there and start with some of the RC drilling. That's obviously subject to heritage approvals and what have you out there, but we're confident we'll be out there in that time. We've got, as I say, very early stage, but lithium results from Pianto coming as well, and a bunch of other field programs that we're continuously undertaking in the background. So look, now that's all coming. Certainly the news flow has been a little more limited since we got the resource out on Lamas Scott, but yeah, we have had a lot of work in the past leading up to that, which we have kept shareholders informed with, and there'll be more work coming at Lamas Scott in the future as well.
And in terms of the pending assay results, you touched on it. What is your expectation on timing?
Soon, very soon, very, very soon. No, we've got a very good relationship with the laboratory in Kalgoorlie. Over the past year or so, it did hamper us just after listing, actually, in that there were huge delays through the laboratories, and it was during COVID shutdowns and what have you at the time. So it was very difficult for us to manage and for the laboratories to manage as well. What we see now and what we've done is modify our assay suite so that we can turn around gold-only assays quite quickly in the Kalgoorlie lab, and then any multi-element data that we need to do is transported to Perth. There's still industry-wide delays in getting that multi-element data through, so that doesn't come through as quickly as we'd like, but getting the gold data through now, to their credit, the labs have brought that forward and largely rectified that problem. So we expect those numbers through very soon.
The question here in regards to the drill hole data core for T12, T15 and Providence, is that something that is available for you to have access to? And if it is, does it help you in the planning for future JORC work?
Yeah, so drill core, we haven't located the drill core itself. The historic data we've got access to, and we've been quite diligent at an early stage getting that data through. Now that we, as part of our due diligence in the acquisition of the project, clearly we wanted to check out historic data. So we think we've got most of that there. We've just embarked on a new program to fully validate all of that historic data and bring it in so it's of a usable quality for any future resource should it eventuate. Yeah, there's a lot of data out there. We're hunting for some more as well. We don't expect we're going to find a lot more. We think we've got our finger on just about everything. It's now getting it completely and utterly validated and brought into our databases. We're still going to be hunting for drill core. There's only a handful of holes, but we also have intention to drill our own drill core, particularly at Kirgella Gift, to give us some constraints on what controls the mineralisation there.
Now, in terms of La Muscat, sorry,
Yep.
I knew I'd pronounce that incorrectly. What's the plan there? Is it tools down, or do you keep pushing ahead? Now you have the resource there. Is it now a dual strategy that's opening up?
Absolutely. So there's plenty of work for us to do out there. The trick for us at the moment is which foot do we put forward? At the moment, we've got an inferred resource. It's a JORC resource, the first one in the entire gold field there, but it is inferred. It's not the type of thing you typically go mining on, but we do have indication that the geometallurgy, for example, is very benign, but we need to confirm that with our own data. So geomet is one possibility. There's further drilling to be done. Do we just step out immediately outside of where we drilled, or do we take a broader approach? I quite like the way that De Grey and what have you expanded upon some of the Hemi deposits, Diacon in particular, where what we've got at Lamas Scott, the shallow mineralisation being outcropping and what have you, the numbers there are very, very impressive. Whereas you look at Diacon, for example, up at Hemi, and the near surface Numbers were interesting, but they weren't earth-shattering. But what they did there was step out and drill systematically, more deeply, and build up what became the second largest resource, I believe, in the Hemi deposit. And I really like the way they tackled that there. Is that the approach we take for Lamas Scott? What we've done now is that we can focus in on Pinjin. We can also work Lamas Scott up. We're currently evaluating the best way forward on that. But yeah, there's a lot of work to be done out there. Can we feed it into, is it something that somebody else, we can feed into one of the mills out there? There's a lot of demand on the mills at the moment. Is there potential for that as well? So we're looking at a whole range of opportunities for Lamas Scott, and we'll move it forward the best way that we can.
Finally, cash, capitalisation, balance sheet. How far does this cash get you, and what's the next horizon that investors should be looking at from a value accretion point of view, so that you're going to use the bulk of the cash in the ground, which is fantastic. Yep. What should investors be focusing on as the next sort of big key milestone that should come as that cash is spent?
Yeah, look, what we want to see is a real build-up out at Pinjin, on the Pinjin project. Clearly, we will be working towards a resource out there. When we pull the trigger on that will depend on what we find, very much so. But certainly, I would almost guarantee that whatever resource we put out first, like at Lamas Scott, that first resource is certainly not the last resource. There's going to be a lot more work to be done out there. At the moment, it's very important for us to fully assess what's going on out at Pinjin. We're on a flexure within the Laverton tectonic zone. Flexures like that are where you want to target large deposits. We see Kirgella Gift and Providence as a window into that flexure zone, if you like, and that's something that we are going to be following up on and building on, and we want to assess that whole area. So look, we're going to expect that we get well and truly towards a resource. We're going to expect that we see some fantastic results in some of the adjacent prospects and some of our own generated prospects. And what we want to do is get the option that we have to spend $1.4 million worth on drilling and associated costs. We want to be able to be in a position to decide the way forward. We expect that it would be to activate the option and move forward and take a holding in the project, a 75% holding in the project as described in the announcements. So what we want to see there is that we move to the next step where we acquire the project and move this thing towards a bankable feasibility study, and ultimately towards mining.
A potentially transformative acquisition and farming, exciting Providence, an exciting MD or excited MD. Oh, yeah. Clearly looking forward to getting boots on the ground and the drill bit spinning. Thanks for the presentation. We have got to the end of all questions, so we will conclude there. But Matt, thanks for the presentation. Look forward to following the Kalgold story. If there are any questions, the contact details for Matt and the team are on the screen. So drop Matt a question or give him a call. Very, very accessible and open to answering all questions, as we've seen today in today's webinar. Look forward to following the progress. Matt, thanks for your time, and thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you everybody, and Dave, really appreciate you putting those